And welcome into this episode of Time Out with the Guys. I am Brad Burton. He is Carter Foley. Carter, good to be here tonight.
Yeah, good to be here with you as well, man. We tried to go live yesterday, and it was a little unsuccessful due to internet problems. So
usually
glad we're doing it tonight.
Yeah, usually we go live every Tuesday. I know the past couple of weeks have been kind of weird. We had a really bad storm here in the good old state of Iowa, which knocked power out for almost a week, and then we had to kind of rearrange our schedules, and then we were hoping to get back on track yesterday, like you mentioned, but then the internet decided to say not so fast with us, so we were pushed back to today, this Wednesday evening. So hopefully next Tuesday we get back on track, or actually next Wednesday I think we'll be back on the air still, back on here. So don't worry, we'll get back to our Tuesday schedule, but until then, this is Time Out with the Guys, episode 4. Hard to believe now, we're already in our 4th episode, but it's been a pretty good NBA playoff couple matchups there. Excuse me. Don't worry. I'm feeling fine. No COVID symptoms. Like I said, though, it's been a pretty good NBA playoff matchups here, obviously with the Blazers and Lakers. That was a really fun series to watch. The Clippers and Mavs. Tough break for the Mavs, though, but boy, I tell you what, I'm really excited for them for many years to come with Luka and Kristaps Porzingis. Those two guys will be really fun to watch. Last night, though, despite not being here, though, we got to watch the Jazz and Nuggets play in Game 7. That was a really fun game. Sloppy basketball there, but overall, though, in Game 7, that's what we want is when it comes down to the wire there. The Heat and Bucks, though, happening right now in Game 1 of their playoff matchups. And then, obviously, with the Rockets and Thunder starting here, Game 7 tonight. That'll be a really fun game there going on. But let's start off, though, with the Lakers and Blazers. This is a really fun playoff series. Obviously, with the Lakers, had the slow start there in Game 1, dropping it to Portland. But then eventually, though, Laker Nation came out, and they were on fire from pretty much after their Game 1 sloppiness, you could say. So I think with the Lakers, we saw them kind of off to a slow start there. LeBron James, I know he was kind of off to a bit of a slow start there as well. I think it was in Game 2 or 3, he only scored 10 points, but then after that, though, he just went on a complete tear. Anthony Davis, those two guys really leading the way for the Lakers. And I tell you what, for the Lakers, this has been really a fun team to watch. I know the past couple seasons have been really tough for them, just trying to kind of find their identity once, after they won the championships back in 2009 and 10. They're kind of going through those retooling years, rebuilding then eventually so many consecutive coaches coming in there. But now the Lakers are back in the playoffs, their first playoff series win since 2012. Boy, if you're the Lakers, if you're a Lakers fan, and I consider myself a Lakers fan, obviously I'm not like a diehard Lakers fan like I am with Chicago, but boy, if you're a Lakers fan, like a diehard Lakers fan, that is too long right there. That is way too long. So the first playoff series win since 2012. LeBron is now 14-0 in the first round. So that's pretty amazing right there, not losing in the first round at all whenever he's been back in the playoffs. So I tell you what, this Lakers team has been really fun to watch, I will say.
Yeah, it's it was a little scary Game 1, don't get me wrong. I thought the Blazers were honestly going to be more of a challenge, but Lakers figured it out, even with LeBron, only scoring that 10 points in Game 2 or Game 3. Having AD there has obviously helped. He's been huge during this series alone. But yeah, obviously I kind of had a feeling once it was 3-1 and Damian went out to leave the bubble to look at his knee and other problems he was having. I kind of knew at that point it was going to be over. Maybe the Trailblazers could have gave him a shot in Game 5, and they were certainly pretty close at points in the game, but they really just couldn't hang on, couldn't deal with LeBron and AD. And the bench actually played pretty good as well. But, when AD scores 43 and LeBron scores 36, that's really tough to win games like that. If you're the Blazers and you don't have your best player. But, give the Trailblazers credit. They're definitely going to be a good team. And they weren't even, before all the, the pandemic stuff happened, they weren't even really projected to make it into the playoffs because they were fighting with like Memphis and San Antonio. And even in the bubble, it was getting pretty intense. And the Blazers had to, play Memphis to see if they could get into that game to even make the playoffs. So give them credit. They had a tough year, obviously, but I think they're going to be, they're going to be a really good team in the Western Conference next year as well. But yeah, obviously the Lakers, to be back in the playoffs and also win their first playoff series since 2012. Huge props to the Lakers, and it's going to be a a really fun, interesting next series. Whether it's against Houston or the Thunder, we don't know quite yet. I mean, obviously that game is a little bit later tonight, but yeah, that series I'm really excited for. Either way, it's going to be a good matchup, and it's going to be probably 6 or 7 games, I would say.
Yeah, when you look at what the Thunder have done, and of course we'll get into the Thunder here later on, but with the Lakers though, and possibly who knows what LeBron could be going up against. He's been playing against guys that he was that were in the same draft class as he was. This one with Portland, Carmelo Anthony, 2003 NBA draft, and then if the Thunder and if the OKC Thunder do win this game, he will be playing against Chris Paul, and obviously we know that LeBron is very close with both Melo and CP3, of course being there in the same draft class as well. So, boy, you're thinking about it, guys from the 2003 NBA draft will still be competing right here in the 2020 NBA playoffs. So I think that's a really good point to look at right there, is that these guys that, yes, they are older now, but they're still playing at a very high level. Chris Paul just continues to shine wherever he goes. And it's just amazing how he's been able to really adapt to playing with the Thunder, because when he got traded from the Rockets to OKC, we were thinking, okay, when is he going to be maybe, possibly released? When will he be traded here again to go to a team that's competing? I know the Miami Heat was a team that he was going to be, or that was looking to possibly look to snag him. But the Thunder, I'll give them credit. They've done a really good job so far this year, just hanging in there. Billy Donovan, kudos to him for putting together a good team. After Kevin Durant left the first time, Westbrook did a great job winning the MVP, and then eventually he goes off because it just wasn't going to work out for him there long-term wise. But Chris Paul, though, has done a good job. Same with Steven Adams, too. Give those guys a lot of credit. But now go back to the Lakers right here. Boy, LeBron and AD just tearing it up right there. Like you mentioned, Anthony Davis, 43 points. LeBron dropping 36. When you have those two guys going off, scoring over 30-plus each, of course, AD getting over 40, that's very, just, again, remarkable numbers right there. Of course, anybody could say that, but for Portland, though, like you mentioned, for a team that was really fighting all season long, because after last season they were projected to make a big run this year, possibly going to the conference finals in the Western Conference there. But I think with Portland, no, this definitely gave them a lot of motivation going into next season, whenever that may get started. But boy, I'll tell you what, though, bring Carmelo Anthony for a guy who really looked to be almost about done, you could say. He did a phenomenal job this year for them. And now, of course, people have been wondering, will they bring back Carmelo Anthony? I say if you're the Blazers right now, that could be a bad thing if you don't bring him back, because look at what he's able to do this year. Yes, he's not the player he once was back when he came up with Denver and then went to the Knicks. Then we kind of started to see there with the Thunder how he kind of started to kind of fall off there a little bit. He wasn't the same Melo as he once was. He goes off to Houston, but then eventually it just wasn't going to work out for him. And people were saying, why would they cut him? Well, because they don't want to disrespect him like that. That's how it is. They don't want to just sign a guy who's been in the league for so many years, possibly a future Hall of Famer as well, and then not just play him. I think that was the best thing for him. And then now you're wondering, is he ever going to step on a floor again at all, shooting baskets? And I'll tell you what, going to Portland, though, that was definitely a good fit for him, playing with Damian, all those guys. And Melo did a really good job. So hopefully for the Blazers, they do bring him back, at least possibly on a one-year contract, because if Portland wants to make a big run next year, I think bringing Carmelo Anthony back would be the right thing to do.
Yeah, I definitely think, Carmelo was a really good piece this season for the Blazers when he did, play those games with them. And even during the playoffs, he showed that he's still very capable of making clutch baskets. And that was really awesome to see. And there's also been other teams also like the Knicks that actually have reached out or have wanted to bring back Melo. So he's kind of revived his career in a sense. Yeah. So that's, a good props for him. But yeah, I definitely agree with you. I think the Blazers 100% have to bring back Melo, whether it is a 1 or 2 year contract to maybe end his career. I can only see him playing maybe 2-3 more years in the league at max. But yeah, I last season I definitely thought it was over for Carmelo, but he certainly proved that he's still got a little bit more gas in the tank, and he could still make those shots, and he knows his role too. I think when he was with the Knicks, everything was kind of flowing through him, but when you have guys on your team like CJ and Dame, who those guys are capable of scoring. You're just kind of out there, and you will, you just shoot those open shots. So I think that's also something that he's realized as he's grown older, and he doesn't have to be that guy all the time. He can just be out there, catch the ball, and shoot it, because that's what he does for the most part, and also gets rebounds too. Obviously when he goes up and grabs those rebounds, he says, "Get the blank out of here," and things like that. So it's pretty funny for that. I love going on social media and seeing Carmelo grab a board. So I definitely think the Blazers will bring him back, and I think the Blazers, like I said earlier, I think they're going to be a threat in the Western Conference.
Yeah, no doubt that they definitely will be for possibly years to come. Even when Melo does decide to retire, I think Portland will definitely get a good foundation there with good players. Dame obviously would no doubt be a centerpiece there, and that's a good point you brought there too with Carmelo. How when he was with the Knicks, everything was going through him. They were trying to build around him, have him be the leader. Unfortunately, it didn't work out. Obviously, Phil Jackson, by the way, phenomenal head coach, but in the front office, though, not where his best strengths definitely were. But I think, like you mentioned, they tried to build around him, and it just didn't work out. Obviously, then the Knicks started to struggle. Then head coaches were getting fired, and eventually it was just time to part ways, and that's what they did, trading him to the Thunder, and then eventually he signs on with the Rockets. But then, of course, we all know it didn't go well there. But now he kind of revives himself there in Portland. Played in 58 games, started off 58 games, averaged just over 15 points. So you look at a guy that is 36 years old, who just turned 36 back in May, and now hopefully, like you said, revived himself. And definitely some teams will be out there trying to get him. But I think Portland, would be the best place for him to stay, help him kind of get that team going where they need to be. And then eventually, who knows, maybe he's competing for a championship. I know it sounds kind of a stretch right now, but hopefully, someday down the road, Carmelo, no doubt, does get the NBA championship. I always look at players from different leagues, like whether it be in in football, baseball, or basketball. And Carmelo, to me, is like Phil Rivers. He has had such a phenomenal career, but he has not gotten that ring just yet. So hopefully, Carmelo does get that ring someday. For a guy that no doubt has worked really hard all these years, been in the league since 2003. Has not gotten a championship just yet. Hopefully he does get that someday. So definitely going to be rooting for him wherever he goes. But now moving on to the other LA team, that being the Clippers. And, I like the Clippers. They have really good players. But Marcus Morris, he really just made me mad a lot. He made me pretty mad. Oh, yeah. So I don't know what his deal was. I'm sure, of course, he's going to say, it wasn't my fault. But whatever. The Clippers, really good team. I like Kawhi. I like Paul George. I like Doc Rivers. Obviously, Doc Rivers is, he's from Chicago. Can't go wrong with that. But I think for the Clippers, though, again, this was a really good series for them. For Dallas, like I said at the beginning of the show, tough break for them. I know this season they showed a lot of potential this year, having Luka and then Porzingis. Both those guys really shined in big moments. Obviously, with Porzingis being hurt, it's kind of like with Dame that we talked about. Without Dame, Portland just could not prevail. I think without Porzingis, the Mavs could not just prevail. Doncic did all he could, but eventually it just was not enough. And I think for the Mavs right now, this is what I'm kind of thinking about. If you're Dallas, obviously you have a really good team now. They're a good young team, because we saw towards the end of Dirk Nowitzki's years how they were really starting to kind of fall off the radar a little bit. But then eventually Luka comes over and was able to kind of revive that franchise. And now here you are, possibly contending now for many years to come down the road, getting back to the NBA Finals. Been their their first appearance since 2011 if they get back to that point. So I think if you're the Mavs, do you go in on free agency, try to bring in, not of course like a big name player, but somebody that can come in and help you get you to that next level in a big way. So we'll see what the Mavs can do right there. But going back to the Clippers, though, right now, they've definitely been a team that I've really enjoyed watching over the past couple of years. Seeing last summer when they signed Kawhi and then brought over Paul George, no doubt that the Clippers will be contending for a championship there as well. So for the Clippers right now, I'm excited for them. But for Marcus Morris, I'm not really excited for him. I think he's a dirty player. He's had a lot of questionable moves and stuff around the league, being playing dirty, just not playing up to the full standard that an NBA player should do, not playing fair. So I think if you're the Clippers right now, definitely got to keep your eye on him for sure. But I think, though, Marcus Morris, though, they cannot have any more drama with him. If he's going to keep causing drama, this could definitely affect the Clippers, I think, going down the road here in the playoffs.
Yeah, kind of what you're going back about the Mavericks. Yeah, I was definitely rooting for the Mavericks in this series. Doncic was incredible, and unfortunately, like you said, they just needed Porzingis extremely bad. Obviously, with the Clippers' ammunition of players, they had pretty deep bench, and obviously Kawhi and PG. Even though PG didn't play that good in the first few games, he did play pretty good in the last few. So. It's unfortunate that the Mavericks, are no longer in the playoffs, but, a really promising future for them, especially when KP is healthy with Doncic. And, I'm definitely looking forward to seeing the Mavericks in the playoffs again in the future. But yeah, going to the Clippers, obviously they're going to make a deep run. They play the Nuggets tomorrow night. And I think that's going to be an interesting series. I'm hoping that Denver can pull out the wins against the Clippers. But yeah, kind of going to Marcus Morris. Yeah, I mean, there was 2 dirty plays in 2 different games against Doncic that I just did not care for at all. And, I'm not even really a Mavericks fan. I was just rooting for them in that series. But, I mean, those were just uncalled for. And the fact that he had to go on social media and say he's not a dirty player, I mean, you knew he was lying. And it was funny because you go on Twitter and the first response was him with the basketball, and he was waving it left, right, and then he just slammed it on Justin Anderson's head. It's just like, come on. I mean, that's intentional. So it just, it's unfortunate. I mean, we know what he's done in the last few years too. Even when he was with Phoenix and other teams like that, he's known to do that. But I did not care for that one foul that led him to be ejected. It was just uncalled for, and I'm glad he did get ejected. But the Clippers, obviously, really good. Kawhi, 33 points on the game in only 40 minutes, and Paul George had 15 points, and he was pretty good. Had 9 rebounds, 7 assists, so almost a triple-double for him. But yeah, I think the Clippers and Nuggets series is going to be interesting, but the Mavericks, I was definitely rooting for them, but, it was a really good series by them, even without KP, and I'm excited to see them in the next few years.
Yeah, definitely, for sure. This is, going to be really fun to watch, I think, going down the road right here. And, yeah, to go on social media and say you're not a dirty player, that just says you're right there that you're pretty much a dirty player. If you're not going to – the best thing to do right now is – if you're not going to say you're a dirty player, just don't say anything. Just go out there, play your game, let your playing do the talking for you. Don't go on social media. Don't go on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, whatever the hell you're going to go on. Just stay off there. Don't say anything, because that's obviously going to get people riled up, and then that's going to start a whole war with all the fan bases going around. But whatever. It is what it is right now. I'm definitely excited, though, for the Clippers to play now the Denver Nuggets. Now going on to the Jazz and Nuggets game. Boy. Last night,
Wow.
Again, kind of glad. And I shouldn't say I'm kind of glad we couldn't do the show last night, no, because we wanted to. But being able to see the game itself, though, kind of get a glimpse of it, that was really cool to see. And I think for the Nuggets, though, to come down from 3-1 to beat the Jazz, because boy, we were thinking about the Jazz had this series in control, but boy, seeing a lot of 3-1 leads get blown now. Because now it kind of gives me flashbacks to the Golden State Warriors back in 2016 when they played against the Cleveland Cavaliers. Boy, that was a really fun series. Wish we can go back and watch that again. But to see the Nuggets, though, not back down, knowing that they're still in this, because, hey, obviously the series isn't over until the team clinches the series win. So I think for the Nuggets to not back down, that was very phenomenal by them. For Jamal Murray, boy, a phenomenal young player. No doubt he is going to be one of the talk-about players for years to come. He's really in that group now of rising young stars. So I'm definitely excited to see how that's going to go. One thing, though, that stuck out to me last night after the game, Carter, I'm sure you saw this as well, when Donovan Mitchell obviously committed the late turnover there, trying all he can do. It just didn't work out for the Jazz at the end. You can see the frustrations there for him, how he felt bad. And, of course, last night he kind of talked about how this is bigger than basketball, obviously, on what's been happening here around the United States in Kenosha, Wisconsin, with so many things going on. But to see Jamal Murray go over to Donovan Mitchell right after the game was over to console him and just give him a handshake. They hugged it out. That just shows you the classiness by all these guys here in the NBA. They know, yes, they won the series, but to go over there and be with the guy who you know very well, to say, hey, good game. I thought that was very classy by him, and that just shows you again too how much these guys, yes, they're very hard competitors. They may kind of say some things on the court that we probably can't say, but they know, hey, it's all business there. When the game's over, they're brothers, and I think that really showed you last night how much these guys really mean to each other. And I think for Donovan Mitchell, that was very classy by him. Just to, hey, he was professional about it, didn't let it get to him. No doubt, I think for the Utah Jazz, they're going to be a fun team to watch. And I think we mentioned here too, probably back when we talked about Gordon Hayward on the first episode or two, how back when he left the Jazz in 2017, and we thought about the Jazz were going to go through some rebuilding years, but boy, to see him now back in contention here, and I know the season is over for them, but next year though, they are going to be a fun team to watch. Donovan Mitchell, he's grown into such a professional player. No doubt he is going to be talked about for many, many years to come. Same with Jamal Murray, Zion, Joe Morant, all these young players now that are emerging. I tell you what, the NBA is in good hands right now after LeBron retires, whenever that may be. It's always good to see generations come in and just start to kind of like, hey, because we saw Michael Jordan, Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, and then Kobe came in, Shaq came in, all those guys, and then LeBron came in, D. Wade, Carmelo Anthony, Chris Paul, and then Kevin Durant, all these other superstars as well. Derrick Rose had his time for a little bit until the injuries started to come for him. But now to see these, these younger players start to step up now, I tell you what, this is going to be a basketball fan right now in the NBA. It's going to be fun for years to come. I'm definitely excited to see how these guys like Mitchell, Murray, Zion, Joe Morant, all of these guys do.
Yeah, it was obviously we talked about it on the show. I thought that was going to be the Nuggets and Jazz series. I thought that was going to be the most interesting and fun series in the first round, and I was certainly right. When the Jazz were up 3-1, I definitely thought that it was over. I thought the Jazz were going to put them away in 5 or 6, and Denver just kept fighting. Jamal Murray had incredible games. Jokic had incredible games. And it was just back and forth battle between both teams. And but yeah, Game 7 was you could definitely tell that there was some fatigue on both sides. That's why the score was 78-80 in favor of Denver. But still, an excellent series. And like you said about the Jazz, I mean, Donovan Mitchell, he's all-star. And he's going to be an all-star for the next years to come. And it's so awesome to see, too, between Jamal Murray and Donovan Mitchell, because they played against each other in high school and in college. And now they're playing at the biggest stage in the NBA, in the NBA playoffs. So definitely it's not the last of this battle between these two teams. And hopefully next year we can get another play. It's certainly enjoyable to watch. These two teams just battle it out, and give the credit to the Nuggets though. Coming back from 3-1 hasn't been done since the Cavs did it against the Golden State Warriors in 2016 in the NBA Finals. So it's certainly interesting. Definitely excited to see what Denver can do against the Clippers in the next round, and hopefully they can give the Clippers a fight, and hopefully they can get it. They can win in 6 or 7 games. I think it's certainly going to be a battle, but I'm pulling for the Nuggets, and hopefully they can advance to the Western Conference Finals.
Yeah, no doubt for sure. This has just been a really fun. Again, that was a fun series to watch right there, just to see all the. Players, and like you said, last night came down to the wire, like you mentioned. So many guys. We're tired because obviously when it goes to 7 games, no doubt you're feeling that, feeling fatigued. But I'll say one thing, I think these guys are pretty lucky to be playing in the same location. I know we talked about it earlier today, how, being there in the bubble, sure, they'd rather be playing on their home courts, probably in front of fans as well. But to be able to not to have to travel, though, from, one part of the country to another, obviously with Utah and Denver, though, pretty close to each other, so good thing for them. If they were still playing like they would be in a normal postseason series, the travel wouldn't be too big much of an effect on them. But I think, though, playing here in Orlando, home court advantage really isn't much of a thing now today here, especially with the bubble going on. Obviously, hopefully next year when we do have a normal NBA playoff series, and hopefully finals as well, we do get back to fans in the arena, playing on the home courts, all that stuff. But for right now, though, I think it's really beneficial to these guys to be in the same spot, no travel whatsoever, just in the same spot, etc. But definitely, though, for Denver, I'll definitely be rooting for them in the playoffs as well. Obviously, of course, I'm pulling for the Lakers. But to see Denver, though, just be that team, that's not backing down, still fighting hard, been really fun to watch there. So I'm definitely excited for these guys and for Jamal Murray as well. And Donovan Mitchell, like you said, play against each other in high school, college. Now here they are in the pros. Boy, what more can you ask for with these two guys competing against each other? So I'm really excited for them. Definitely going to be fun to watch for years to come. So like I said, with the NBA, they have a lot of good stuff going on right now with these young players stepping up there. The next generation of players is going to be really fun to watch. So I can't wait to see how that's all going to work out. Now we're moving on now to the Miami Heat and the Milwaukee Bucks. Boy, this has been a really I was excited for this series. Game 1 was terrific. Obviously, it was a tough break for the Bucks, though. Miami Heat, though. Jimmy Butler, holy cow, 40 points for him in this Game 1 matchup. Obviously, they're playing right now here in Game 2. But Game 1, though, for sure, was definitely something fun to look out for. Obviously, like I said, with Jimmy Butler scoring 40 points for a guy who really has stepped up for the Miami Heat this year, done a really terrific job. For the Heat, obviously with D Wade retiring last year, hopefully they can stay in that contention. And no doubt, I think for the Miami Heat, they're definitely a team that are going to be really tough to stop. Obviously for Milwaukee, this is a team, hey, they dropped Game 1 in their first series to the Orlando Magic, but from there on out, it was smooth sailing for them. I think for the Heat, be a bit of a tougher matchup. Obviously, we know when you advance in the playoffs, it doesn't get easier. So I think for the Milwaukee, they know that. Definitely gotta try and contend really hard here in Game 2, which they are doing right now.
Yeah, it was certainly all pretty much all Heat in the second half in this Game 1. I thought Milwaukee was going to be a little bit better. They just kind of played sloppy, and that's kind of what they did against Orlando too in Game 1 as well. So it could just be a Game 1 curse that the Milwaukee Bucks are facing. But yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. The Heat are an excellent team, and they're an underrated 5 seed to say the least. Miami is excellent. They play defense, and they have a really deep bench too. Obviously, they got Jay Crowder, Andre Iguodala, and Tyler Hero has been an excellent rookie for them as well this season. Obviously, Bam Adebayo, Jimmy Butler, all those guys, and even Goran Dragic. I mean, there's that many good players on that team. So it's certainly going to be a tough one. Obviously, it's a close Game 2 at the moment right now with the Heat leading by 5, 77-72. So obviously it's another close game again. So it's just going to come down to the wire, and obviously turnovers were a big part in the Bucks' loss last game. So obviously I think if they can limit the turnovers, I think they can do okay and hopefully pull out the win to tie the series 1-1.
Yeah, no doubt for sure. And honestly, with right now, Milwaukee is leading Game 2 right now, but the Heat are leading Game 1 or Game 2 right now. Milwaukee just hanging in there. But I think when you look at the Miami Heat, obviously, like you said, just a really phenomenal team. And I think with Milwaukee, like I said, it's just some sort of Game 1 curse that they just have. Who knows? But definitely, though, I think for Milwaukee, this Game 2 is a must-win right now, which they must win tonight. I think we both know that because, boy, going up 2-0 right now for the Heat, that would be a huge advantage for them. Obviously, for the Bucks, they're not going to back down. I think what we saw there with the Jazz and Nuggets series when the Jazz were up 3-1 there and Denver came back to win from being down 3-1, I definitely think that for Milwaukee that would be no problem if they were to be down 2-0. They could definitely come back, win Game 3, definitely tie the series up at Game 4, and then who knows what's going to happen from there on out. So I'm definitely excited to see how this is all going to go for them. Of course, for the Miami Heat, free throws were a huge advantage for them. Obviously, 25 out of 27 for them. That was huge for them. So no doubt that definitely played a favor in their victory. But overall, though, I think for Miami, just a phenomenal team that they had this year. No doubt signing Jimmy Butler was a huge addition to them this year because he lost D Wade to retirement. No doubt you're going to miss his presence there. Still, though, he'll definitely be around there to help the team out wherever they need him at. So I think for Miami right now, and of course their head coach Eric Spoelstra, he's done such a terrific job ever since LeBron came in. He left, but still able to put together a solid team there as well. So I'm definitely excited for the Heat, and who knows what could happen. They definitely are going to be making a lot of noise here in the playoffs as they are right now. So I definitely can't wait to see how they're going to keep on playing against the Bucks, and who knows if they beat them, which definitely be, you can say, quite the upset there, because we're expecting Milwaukee to be in the NBA Finals this year, despite all what's happening there with the COVID-19 pandemic. So I definitely think for Milwaukee, that would definitely be an upset for them to get knocked out of the playoffs this early.
Absolutely, and Obviously, if there is any team to upset the Bucks, it is Miami Heat. I've been thinking that since the playoffs started, that they were, like I said, an underrated 5 seed, and they proved it in Game 1. So if they can win in Game 2, the Bucks are certainly going to be in trouble. Obviously, home court advantage doesn't really matter as much, but still, for the most part, you don't want to be put in that position. You don't want to be down 2-0 in the playoffs to begin with. So obviously that, they were also leading against Toronto last year. They were up 2-0, and a lot of people thought, oh, Milwaukee's going to the finals, and then Toronto just won 4 games in a row to go to the finals, and everybody was shocked, including myself, because I thought Milwaukee was the team to go to the finals in the Eastern Conference. But give credit to Miami, played a really good game, and if they can win tonight, it's certainly going to be trouble for the Bucks for Game 3. But I mean, you look at the points in the paint. They scored 42 against Milwaukee's 24. And think about Milwaukee too. They have a lot of big guys, and especially Giannis scores a majority of his points in the paint. So for them to only have 24, that was definitely an under amount for that team and what they're capable of. But yeah, just give credit to the Heat. Played excellent defense, and obviously Jimmy Butler's explosive fourth quarter really was insane for him. And in the last 4 minutes, he scored 13 points and was 5 of 5 shooting. So it's hard to win games when you have somebody like that that's just on fire.
Absolutely. For Jimmy Butler, like we talked about here several times already, boy, when you score 13 points in the last couple minutes of a game, boy, he just really took matters into his own hands. You could say they pretty much said, okay, let's ride through Jimmy right now, see what we can do. And boy, he did such a phenomenal job. And to see Jimmy Butler, obviously, being a fan of his since he came up with Chicago, seeing him emerge to the superstar that he is today, such a phenomenal player. Going from Chicago to Minnesota, and then off to Philadelphia, and now to Miami. I know he's kind of had some bumps along the road, not because he was playing bad, but because teammates, his attitude, probably wasn't the best at times. But to see him just kind of be the guy he is today, really just emerging as that guy where people can look up to, follow him. He can lead the team himself now. I think that's a really big thing for Miami and Jimmy Butler to have there. It's kind of funny, though, back when Chicago and Miami were playing back in the playoffs, I think this is 2013, when the Bulls were somewhat still good back then, even without Derrick Rose when he was hurt. Butler said he never wanted to play for Miami. Well, here we are now in 2000. Here we are now in here in the 2020. But obviously, hey, you say stuff then, and eventually you kind of forget about it. But hey, whatever, it is what it is. Obviously, emotions are high in the playoffs, but to see him though in Miami, he is a really good fit for him. I'll give him that. He's a really good fit down there for him. I think he's able to really play well down there with those guys, play with those young with those young players. Because Jimmy Butler, he is now getting up there. He is going to be 31 here pretty soon. So hard to believe that, but definitely excited though to see how the Heat are going to progress throughout the rest of this playoff series.
Yeah, obviously, like I mentioned during the highlights, they have a really deep team for the most part. Obviously, they have Jay Crowder and Andre Iguodala, who have been pretty good for them. Obviously, Andre Iguodala on the defensive side of things, and Jay Crowder, surprisingly, on the offensive side of things, is a really excellent three-point shooter. He's actually been shooting about 60% in the bubble this season. So really good numbers for him, and definitely good shooting as well. And I can't even forget about Duncan Robinson, who's one of the best three-point shooters and one of the best three-point shooters in the league this season. So really just an excellent deep bench. Really good players, and like I said, I would not be surprised if Miami wins the series against Milwaukee. I mean, I definitely think they could easily make the finals and give either the Lakers or the Clippers or whoever does end up making it a run for their money. So, it's going to be interesting playoffs, the next few games. And obviously it's a tight one now in game 2. But, yeah, we're just going to have to wait and see. But, yeah, it's certainly interesting to watch.
Absolutely. And speaking of, tight games and stuff, moved on now to the Rockets and Thunder. More of a tight series, we could say. I'll tell you what, for the Rockets, they got off to a hot start in this playoff series here, and then the Thunder just came back and were really just going off on the board stuff. Game 7 is supposed to start here tonight at 8 p.m. Central Time, so definitely looking forward to that game. But for the Rockets and Thunder, though, this has just been a heck of a playoff series to watch right now. James Harden, Chris Paul, Steven Adams, even from the Thunder as well. I should say. But boy, now to have this series at Game 7, you could just tell right away from, here, these two teams are going to be firing off right away. This is going to be a very competitive Game 7 right here, and I'm really excited for this matchup tonight.
Yeah, obviously, I did think that the Rockets had moments in Game 6 that they were just going to end up closing the Thunder, but the Thunder kept fighting.
Yeah.
They've had moments where they've really struggled on offense this season. Obviously, they've been trying out Lou Dort to guard James Harden, so you give up basically an offensive player in exchange of excellent defense on a really obviously incredible score in James Harden. So, and it's worked out obviously in Game 6, Harden still scored 32 because that's just what he's capable of. I mean, when he scores 60, some people, if you were to tell me he scored 60, I wouldn't even really be surprised because that's just what he's capable of. So to hold him to 32 points, obviously it's still a pretty high amount, but still in a playoff game when you're playing defense against them. He shot 11 of 22, still pretty good shooting for the most part. But yeah, I mean, give the Thunder credit, obviously just hanging in there. And I keep saying this over and over, but they weren't even projected to be in the playoffs. So for them to be battling against a team like the Rockets in the playoffs to now go to a Game 7 where really anything's possible here, it's you got to give them credit. And Billy Donovan of the Thunder has done an excellent job. Obviously, a lot of people, including myself, didn't think the Thunder were even going to be mentioned as a wild card or anything like that in the playoffs. So for them to be even in this position, I mean, just have to give them excellent credit. And if they move on, I mean, wow, incredible effort by the Thunder. And we'll have to wait and see what the Lakers can do against the Thunder. And maybe we're in for another close series.
Oh, for sure, no doubt. And looking right now, the Thunder are 3-0 at home in the postseason, and they are 0-3 on the road here in this first round. So when you look at it right here, playing at home tonight for the Thunder, no doubt, I think they have the advantage when they're the home team technically. So, like I said, though, of course, home court advantage doesn't play a big role. But I guess when they've been named the home team, they'll have they possibly feel that power in them. But I think no doubt for the Thunder themselves, they have a lot of they have a lot of good things going for them right now. And like you mentioned here too, with Chris Paul, when he was traded to the Thunder after Paul George was sent away to the Clippers, you're thinking, okay, are the Thunder, what's their direction right now? Because obviously they got a good deal in return for Paul George after he was traded. But you're kind of thinking though right now, okay, for the Thunder, this could be a season where they retool the roster there, probably next season as well. But now here you are with Chris Paul, and there's rumors about him being traded once again to the Heat. But then eventually those rumors did die down, and here he is now with OKC being their star that they got in that trade. So I think for them, for the Thunder, Billy Donovan, he's done such a great job. Like we mentioned, he's been put into a lot of tough spots here during his tenure as the head coach for the Thunder. Obviously, his first year he had Kevin Durant, and Kevin Durant coming off the injury-plagued season that he had back in the 2014 and 15 season. But then 2015-16, able to come back and be the KD that he was. But what do you know? That next coming off season, he signs with the Golden State Warriors, and then now Billy Donovan's up to kind of, okay, what does he do now? Obviously, Westbrook then becomes the focal center of the team. So they do a really good job there. He wins the MVP, and then here you are trying to kind of rebuild your team now with Paul George being traded away from the Pacers to the Thunder. But now you're kind of in this hole once again here where you might have to move in a different direction. So I think for Billy Donovan, with all he's been through as the coach of the Thunder, he's done a really good job. Now, of course, coaching Chris Paul, I think he's been, and like I said, he's done such a great job as the coach for the Thunder.
Yeah, obviously, like I mentioned, Thunder, excellent job staying with it. Providing a battle for the Rockets, who probably a lot of Rockets fans, probably a lot of NBA fans thought in general this is probably going to be a 5-game series, even without Russell Westbrook. But got to give them credit. I mean, they just keep punching back. It's a tie game, and now we got Game 7. But for the most part, I mean, look at the numbers. I mean, that's what ultimately why I thought that the Rockets were going to win Game 6. Is they pretty much all the numbers favored them, but a couple of fouls and a couple extra turnovers, and that's ultimately what allowed OKC to win that game to move on to Game 7. And obviously, we have to mention Chris Paul's name. Obviously, incredibly clutch fourth quarter once again from the vet. And, it was funny in the post-game interview, he said that there's some people that are built for it and some that aren't. And I don't know. I mean, maybe he was taking a shot at his old Thunder teammates. But, still, you got to give him credit. Excellent fourth quarter. And we'll see if the Thunder could do it again tonight to move on to face the Lakers. It's certainly interesting to see. And but, if you're the Rockets, James Harden definitely has to score probably at least 40 points tonight. And Russell Westbrook can't have 7 turnovers. That was just too many. And he also had a really bad turnover in the final seconds of that game too. So, have to limit the turnovers because the Thunder, they'll make you pay if that's the case.
Oh, for sure, no doubt. And I definitely think, for Westbrook, the turnovers definitely came back to bite them. You could say that for sure. And I think overall, for the Rockets themselves, obviously this has been a pretty big series. Obviously, we have, look at it, James Harden, Chris Paul, 2 former teammates right there. So who knew that they would meet up right there in the playoffs? So I definitely think you make a good point there for Westbrook. The turnovers definitely need to be limited for sure. I know with James Harden, that's been a problem for him in the past as well. So hopefully for the Thunder, they can rebound and get over that hump there in Game 7 here tonight. But no doubt, like you said, though, that these turnovers definitely need to be settled down. 7 turnovers on one player, like you said, that's just way too many right there. Usually about 2 to 3 turnovers per game. Obviously, turnover is never a good thing, but 7 turnovers, though, in a game, that's just not good. So hopefully for Westbrook, he can rebound from that and get back on track here in Game 7 tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. You have to limit the turnovers as a whole entire team. Westbrook has to be better. He definitely has to play a lot better. I think he has to be a little bit more aggressive too. I think he's obviously one of the most explosive guys out there on the court for both sides. So I think he definitely has to score at least probably 25 or 30 points tonight, as well as James Harden scoring 40 if the Rockets want to have a chance to win this game, because I think the Thunder have a lot of the momentum now. Knowing that they could easily just win this game and to move on and face the Lakers. But it's certainly going to be interesting, and I'm excited to watch the game after the show.
Oh, for sure. Definitely going to be a fun matchup here once we get done here with this episode. Before we take our quick break here, I know, of course, so we always do this at the end of our, NBA talk, who you got. And obviously with our first one is the Thunder and Rockets here in Game 7. So who you got tonight in Game 7? Oh boy, this is a tough one. I'm not gonna lie.
It is.
I mean, I like both. I mean, of course, I'm like a fan of both teams, but there's players though on both teams I highly cheer for. With the Rockets, with them being a home game for them, and they're 3-0, it said. So I'll take Houston in this one, but the Thunder are definitely going to give them a run for their money for sure. This is definitely be a close matchup, I think, here in Game 7, like we saw last night with the Nuggets and Jazz. But I will take Houston in this one. For the Thunder, if they lose tonight, hey, for a season that they were not supposed to be here, but they are right now. Obviously, no teams were supposed to be here right now, here on September 2nd. But to not be to be projected to not be in the postseason, to be going through a rebuilding year, retooling year, whatever you want to call it, hey, that's a great season right there for what you were able to go through. And if they do win, hey, great job for them. But I will take the Rockets here in Game 7.
So, I actually have the Thunder winning this game.
Okay.
I think, and the reason why is I think, like I mentioned, I think they have a lot of momentum. I think Chris Paul is going to have a couple of really clutch buckets again in the fourth quarter. And knowing what I know about James Harden in Game 7s has not been good for him. Against Golden State, a couple other teams as well. He has performed not very good at all. But, you have Westbrook too now. So hopefully he can take a little bit of the scoring load off of you. But James Harden in Game 7s is not very good. So, if James Harden, like I said, could have an excellent Game 7 and shoot the ball very well and win the game, I think maybe that could hopefully diminish some of that criticism that a lot of NBA analysts have about James Harden, especially in the playoffs. Obviously, we know what he can do in the regular season, putting up insane numbers, but in the playoffs, it kind of dies down a little bit. So we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, I'm going to give the edge to the Thunder. I think we're going to see the Thunder playing the Lakers on Friday.
Absolutely. Definitely going to be exciting game here tonight. And boy, hey, with the Thunder, like you said, a lot of momentum on their side. Can't go wrong with that. So, no, that's a good pick right there. So, I'm definitely excited for this game. Definitely can't wait to tune in to watch it once we're done here with the show. Now, our next thing we have here, the Raptors and Celtics in Game 3. Boy, kind of a tough one right here for sure. Tell you what, with Toronto, though, they've really kind of, the season that they've had, obviously losing Kawhi, in the offseason last year, going to LA, and now, of course, they're there right now, still contending here in the playoffs. But the Celtics still, boy, Jason Tatum, he's just been on fire. You cannot go wrong with him. That whole Celtics team has definitely been tough to, they're tough to play against. So I'll take my pick here. I'll go with the Celtics. Like I said, Jason Tatum, he's just been unstoppable. Obviously, with them signing Marcus Smart to that contract extension, I thought that was good. I thought that was a good thing for them. So I'll take this. So I'll take Boston here in Game 3.
I think I have the Raptors winning this one. I think obviously it is a must-win situation for the Raptors too. So I think that's going to feed into them playing a little bit harder, a little bit better than the Celtics. Obviously, the Celtics have been playing excellent. Don't get me wrong, especially with Jason Tatum, like you mentioned, and they're doing this all without Gordon Hayward too, which is just incredible. So obviously, we know that the Celtics are an incredibly deep team. They're coached extremely well by Brad Stevens. But I think Nick Nurse, obviously, we have to give him credit too, an excellent coach as well. Obviously, the Raptors won the finals last year, and it wasn't just all because of Kawhi. Obviously, it had a big part to do with Kawhi, but obviously, you got to give credit to the coaching staff and Pascal Siakam and Kyle Lowry and all those guys. So I think I think the Raptors are definitely going to play a little bit better. I think they're definitely going to, have to win this game, like I mentioned. But I do, at the end of the day, think they are going to win it and just be down 1-2 against the Celtics.
Yeah, for sure, no doubt. This is a must-win here for Toronto, so definitely going to be exciting to see how that is going to turn out. But yeah, definitely for Toronto, you can't rule them out just yet, being down 2-0, because hey, we saw last year with being down 2-0 to Milwaukee and then able to come back there. No doubt, this is a tougher team, I think. But hit for Boston though right now. They got something rolling here, but I think Toronto is definitely going to put up a good fight. So we'll see what they can do with that. Now, our last game we have here, the Nuggets and Clippers here, Game 1. Boy, with the Nuggets still having a lot of momentum off their last series against the series win against the Jazz, and now the Clippers basically kind of, with Marcus Morris playing dirty, taking out Luka there at times. No, Clippers they are a really good team, but when you play dirty, though, like that one player does, kind of gives you a bit more advantage, I think. But nothing against the Clippers personally. Like I said, I like Kawhi, I like Paul George, two really phenomenal players. I will take the Clippers here in Game 1. I think overall for them, they are the better team, of course, we could say. But no doubt Denver is going to put up they will put up a good fight with them throughout the series, depending how it goes. But I will take the Clippers here in Game 1.
I'm going to also go with the Clippers. I definitely think it is going to be a close series, like you mentioned. But ultimately, I think you have to keep in mind too, the Nuggets literally just got done with a 7-game series against Utah, which was a battle. So I think the whole team is probably fatigued. And you have to think too, the Clippers have had a few days off now, so they're well rested and ready to attack in Game 1. So I definitely am going to give the edge to the Clippers, but I definitely think this series could go 6 and 7 games ultimately. But yeah, I definitely going to give this Game 1 to the Clippers. I just think Kawhi is going to be a little bit too much for them, and I think PG is actually going to have a really good first game as well. And but yeah, if Jokic and Jamal Murray can obviously keeps continuing to score at those insane levels that they were doing, like they were against Utah, definitely could see them possibly pulling it out in Game 1. But for the most part, yeah, I'm going to give it to the Clippers for this one.
Yeah, definitely going to be a really fun playoff series right there between the Clippers and the Nuggets. Definitely can't wait to see how that's all going to play out. But really going to be an exciting one here. I know with all the uncertainty that was happening back in the spring with the NBA, would they be able to even get their season going once again after such a long break because of the COVID-19 pandemic? But I know we'll probably say it on every show, but I'm so impressed by what they've been able to do here with the bubble and stuff, keeping the players safe, having them play at the high intensity level like they would be if this whole thing had not happened, to be able to get them tested, daily, and all of them coming back negative. And we know if you leave the bubble, you have to quarantine for 14 days. So I think that's a smart move by Adam Silver to do that. And, of course, all the NBA officials there with them. So definitely, again, props to the NBA for putting up this fun, because obviously we were really concerned about whether they would be able to get going or not. But, boy, it's just been a really fun NBA, restarting, season for them, you could say.
Yeah, absolutely. I've definitely missed basketball the last few months that there was none around, and no sports in general. It was definitely not enjoyable to just be sitting around doing nothing for the most part. But No, I mean, you have to give the NBA credit. Also, the NHL, too, that are doing the bubble situations and have had no outbreaks or anything like that.
Nope.
And it's just awesome to see. And obviously, fingers crossed. But, yeah, I mean, it's been an excellent playoff so far. And I'm obviously excited for the next rounds and the finals to come. So, yeah, it's awesome.
All right, definitely there. Well, we are going to take our first break here, and of course our only break. When we come back, though, we'll dive into some football talk. The Big Ten, will they be getting going here in October? We'll see how that's all going to play out. And one running back, it will be looking for a new home. Already just been in the league for just a few years. That being Leonard Fournette, and also too, what players to look out for this season. We'll be right back. This is Time Out with the Guys. And welcome back to Time Out with the Guys. I am Brad Burton. He is Carter Foley. Here, one second. I'm going to push this away real quick from me.
Oh, come on, man.
Well, you were pushing it towards
The
me.
Mariners are really good this season.
And the Cubs are playing good too, okay?
All right.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
But with football, though, it's probably going to be different, though, I would assume.
Yeah, most likely.
Yeah, I mean, okay. Yeah, I kind of walked myself into that one. Anyway, yeah, actually, we're going to talk about football. First off, with college football, the Big Ten. Obviously, we know there's been a lot of drama going on between the Big Ten, a lot of, with what they should do with their season. We know probably just a few weeks ago they were talking about how they would try and aim for a spring scheduled season, but now reports are kind of aiming now that they could possibly start here in October 10th at the earliest, I think is what they said. So when you look at the Big Ten, this obviously it's a big college football conference, no doubt it is. Obviously you have the teams like Michigan, Ohio State, Iowa's done a really good job over the past couple of years. Last season, the Fighting Illini really came on big last year, making it to their first bowl game appearance. And boy, it's been a long time since that happened. I can't even remember when. Probably back when I was in high school, at least. I believe back when I was a freshman in 2011. So when you look at the Big Ten, like I said, they're a big power football conference, and the COVID-19 pandemic has really made things tough this year for sports. We see still colleges, still trying to aim for sports to be played, but we see the outbreaks happening here at colleges around the country. I know down south that's been a really big target for them. Even up here outbreaks are still happening. But would it be smart, though, for the Big Ten to resume or to actually start their season on October 10th? Because we know, and of course I'm not trying to make this into now a COVID-19 debate now, but we know that with cases still going up and still in the first wave, here we are. The second wave is projected to be around that time still. Like I said, though, we are still here in the first wave. So would it be smart, though, for the Big Ten to start their season on October 10th? Because you got to think, if you do play football, no fans are going to be allowed. I mean, that's pretty much a guarantee, you could say, at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think obviously the Big Ten are in a situation where, obviously, when it comes to football, obviously there's a lot of good powerhouse teams that come out of the Big Ten. So, but then at the end of the day, it's all about money, right? So they're obviously losing a bunch of money, by not playing football. Obviously, if you go to the springtime, obviously, you can regain some of that money back, but it might be kind of weird because then you have, only a few, conferences playing at that time, and it's just kind of a jungled mess in a way. So it doesn't really surprise me that the Big Ten is considering this option of starting in October. I definitely think that, if it's safe, if they believe that they can do it successfully, and that obviously they know the risks that are involved. Obviously, if there is a huge outbreak, they have to, either shut a team down or shut the conference down, whatever it may be. Maybe it's worth a shot, right? I don't know. It's at the end of the day, I mean, I've already gave my opinion of obviously the bubble situations in the NHL and the NBA have worked out so well. And obviously with baseball, we saw what basically happened when that wasn't the case, right? And there was a bunch of outbreaks. Teams were getting quarantined. Teams wouldn't be playing for a few games at least, and so it could just be a jungle mess. So obviously, I think if you have a plan in place, if you're the Big Ten, and you can do it successfully, and you have to realize that if there is an outbreak of COVID-19, that you just have to suspend operations. If they're willing to do that, I think maybe, it is worth the risk. But at the end of the day, I kind of like the idea of them just starting in the spring, not taking any chances. But, we'll just have to wait and see what they decide to do.
I will say I'm a little skeptical on them starting in the spring and, of course, here in the fall as well, because you got to think if you start football there in the spring and stuff, you can't have a 12-game season then. You can't obviously probably maybe do, I would say at most, probably 8 games. So if you really want to have a season and stuff, I mean, I guess the springtime would be, as of right now, the best option. But you got to think there, too, if you play football in the spring and stuff, it's going to be a really quick turnaround for these players and stuff, because you got to think then, okay, we start our season maybe in March, the first week of March, whatever, and then have your Big Ten tournament, whatever, in May, sometime the middle of May. And you got to think, boy, that's gonna be a really quick turnaround for all those, for all those student athletes and the coaches as too, have to get really, get going for the second season, and obviously with the seniors as well, declaring for the draft that will be happening there. So it's just really been such a chaotic time, for them. I kind of, maybe they should have been playing this earlier. I'm not saying that, this is all, this is on them completely, but maybe they were trying to take too much of a risk. They're thinking, okay, COVID happening back in the springtime, come, late summertime, we'll be okay. But right now, it's just not that point. So I think right now, though, it's just, I don't know. I mean, I love college football. I love the Big Ten. I need my Iowa Hawkeyes back badly.
Yep.
But for right now, you just have to think, though, that there's more bigger things, to be resolved than college football. I mean, if they do at all get going here in October and they can do it in a safe way, I'm all for it completely. But, boy, you just got to think, though, there's so many things that you got to be thinking about once they do get going, whether it be a team testing positive for COVID, players on a team testing positive for COVID, coaches as well, who knows. But I just, oh, man, like I said, I'm not trying to say I'm opposed to it starting in the fall, but you just gotta think, though, man, there's gonna be a lot of things to be thinking about. Same when, same in the springtime. Who knows where we'll even be at in the springtime? I mean, we were thinking that come here, in the fall time, September 1st, we would be at a point where we can get on with our lives still. We wouldn't not be wearing masks no more, but we still are. And I think it's just at a point now where we just have to be prepared for be prepared for almost anything now at this point. So for the Big Ten if they want to get going in October, they can do it in a safe way. I'm all for it. But like I said, though, pretty much at this point, you have to know that there's not going to be any fans going there, because Iowa State, granted, they are in the Big 12, but they said, though, for their first game, up to 25,000 would be allowed in. But just today, they said no fans allowed. And their game starts in almost here in just a few days. So you got to be thinking, boy, no fans will be allowed in those stadiums.
Yeah, I definitely think that's the mentality that you have to realize, and obviously a lot of the revenue that obviously those conferences and the NCAA make is from television and sponsorships and things like that. So obviously, yeah, it does suck for the home team, obviously, to miss out on ticket sales and obviously food and drink and stuff like that at the stadiums. But at the end of the day, it's about making money, and obviously we know that. I mean, even when all this started, there was still a possibility of March Madness even starting too, and even when this outbreak was going on. So, I mean, that right there just shows that the NCAA is all about money, and it's not really surprising to me at the end of the day. So that's why the Big Ten's coming back in it, because obviously they're a huge money maker, and they have a lot of good teams, like I mentioned. But yeah, I mean, no fans. I wouldn't be surprised if that was the case, and I think that is the right thing to do at the end of the day as well. Obviously, a lot of the games will be on TV, and you'll be able to watch them. And sure, it's not the same thing as being at the actual stadium, but if you could still watch your team's live games, I mean, you can't really complain. And even with the NBA, a lot of people were like, "Well, if I can't go to the NBA playoffs, then what's the point?" But it's been certainly still an amazing experience watching it, at home and watching it on your TV. And it's still an incredible experience, and obviously, like we keep giving the NBA credit, but I mean, they certainly deserve it. But the virtual fans, obviously, to make it feel like a home court game with the graphics that have like the team logo, towards the middle of the court, and the sponsorships too of the home team and things like that, and obviously the big graphics board around the whole arena. So I mean, they've really done it, and obviously a really good job. So maybe obviously NFL and the Big Ten and NCAA can do something like that as well too. I know they've been talking about like pumping in crowd noise to kind of make it seem like there's people there. So I mean, there's things you can do, but at the end of the day, if you can have football without the fans, I don't think people should really complain about that. And I think they should just be happy that football's back.
No, not at all. You're exactly right. And people were asking me, because me being a huge Chicago Cubs fan, people were asking me like, Brad, how do you feel about not going to Wrigley this season? I mean, yeah, it sucks for sure, but at the same time, though, I mean, I'm just glad I can watch him on TV still. I know I'll go back there someday. It's not like this is the end of the world for me. I mean, I get it. We love sports, and I know for some people this has definitely affected them in many ways. But I think for right now, though, you can watch it on TV. Yes, it's not the same as you would be if you were there in person. I know people, they have season ticket holders. They go there and they enjoy the atmosphere. It's really fun. I get that. I've been to Kinnick Stadium a few times. It's a terrific experience. Love it. But I think for though right now, you just have to be prepared to, hey, this year it may not work out. But I think though right now, hey, just stay back. Don't worry. You'll go back there someday. But for right now, just wait and see what's going to happen. Hopefully they do get a season end, whether it be in the fall or springtime. We'll wait and see what happens with that. Kind of going now to some breaking news right here with our next topic. It was about Leonard Fournette. He is now signed with a team. You want to take a shot at which team he signed with?
I'm gonna guess because I have not seen this news, so I'm guessing blind here. I'm gonna guess the Patriots.
It's not the Patriots.
Not the Patriots. Okay,
not the Patriots.
I have no idea then. I have no idea.
Just take one more shot.
Is it the 49ers?
It's not the 49ers.
Okay.
Oh,
Wait, let me take one more. Take one more.
Just
the Colts?
No.
Okay, I give up. Who is it?
Tampa.
Tampa Bay. Oh, interesting. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense.
Yeah, because I mean, because honestly, from obviously from a geographical standpoint, obviously he played in Jacksonville his first 3 years, before he just got cut here just a few days ago, and now he's going to Tampa. But Leonard Fournette, though, of course, our graphic is kind of wrong right now. No, it's okay.
I'm gonna guess the Buccaneers. Is that correct?
I mean, yeah, that is true. But we already said it. No. But this was really kind of this was a shocking move, at least on my part. It was because Leonard Fournette, when he came into the league back in 2017, he really had a phenomenal rookie season. Was really showing what he can do, and no doubt he was going to be one of the talked about running backs for years to come. But then his second year in 2018 kind of really just fell off the radar real quickly there with all the injuries. I mean, I know that there were some team issues going on there. Obviously, we know back in 2017, he was suspended for one game because of an attitude problem. I get it. You're a rookie. You're kind of adjusting to a league now here where you'll be held to a much higher standard. And I think with Jacksonville, they were still a much younger team still, so they didn't have like the veterans there around him to kind of say, hey, this is how you need to mature and become not just a better player, but a better man. And I think going down to Tampa, that's going to be a really good fit for him. Playing there with Tom Brady, no doubt Tom Brady is one of the all-time greats. And then obviously they're playing with Rob Gronkowski as well. Both those guys I think could really be good mentors to him. And just playing with the Tampa Bay team that you could say now is getting more experience. Obviously, they have a head coach there in Bruce Arians where he's done such a great job there with players. I know back when he was with Arizona, made Carson Palmer into made him into basically an MVP candidate, you can say, in his prime years, even at 35, 36, and 37 years old. And, of course, with Leonard Fournette, yes, he is a running back, but I'm definitely excited to see how he's going to fit in with this Buccaneers team. Obviously, with the season still projected to begin here in just over a week now, hopefully they can get through the entire year without any interruptions. But I'm definitely looking forward to seeing how he's going to fit down there with them. We know Tampa Bay, they've had a tremendous offseason, obviously bringing Tom Brady from the Patriots, getting Gronk out of retirement. So I think to give Fournette a shot. And last year, did get over 1,000 rushing yards, so he still has that speed, I think, to get over 1,000 rushing yards. The question is, though, can he stay healthy and can he just keep producing on a daily basis? Because for him, it's just been up and down, kind of like a roller coaster. So I think for Fournette, this is going to be a good fit for him to see where he can shine. And hopefully, I think still, though, going from Jacksonville to Tampa, not having to do a whole lot of moving, going from one state to another, I think that's going to personally be a good fit for him.
Yeah, I think obviously, he's only been in the league for a few years now, and I think it was time for a change, right? And I think sometimes players just need to get out of different teams and things and need a refresher, if you will. So I think that's a really good area, like you mentioned. Obviously, you get to stay in the same state. Probably just have to move down a little bit further, obviously. But you don't have to leave states. You don't have to move across the country. You don't have to do all those things. That could be obviously a hassle for him. But Obviously, I think the Tampa Bay is going to be a pretty good team. Obviously, we both agree that they're going to be probably a pretty high team this year in the NFC. And obviously having Tom Brady and having Gronk, like you mentioned, and LaShawn McCoy, Mike Evans, and now Leonard Fournette. I mean, that's a really deep offensive team. And you have to remember, too, last season, the Bucs' defense was actually very good for the most part.
It was.
And the reason why the Buccaneers were losing games was actually because of the offense, because of Jameis Winston, obviously throwing like 30 for 30, obviously. So, obviously, hopefully Brady can. Obviously, he's not what he once was. Don't get me wrong, but he still has that veteran experience. He's there for 2 years, maybe a little bit longer if the Bucs like what they see from him. But ultimately, I think this is going to be a good change, and that was kind of the thing with the Buccaneers last year that a lot of people were noticing is that the weapons with the Patriots weren't as good for him, and obviously Brady. He's not a mobile quarterback at all. He strictly relies on just passing the ball out, giving it to the running back and things like that. So hopefully with a little bit more offensive weapons, the Bucs can be a little bit more explosive on offense, and hopefully give the defense a little bit more time to break out there rather than throwing picks and things like that. But Leonard Fournette, good for him, getting a new opportunity with a new team, and I think he's going to actually be really good next year with the Buccaneers.
I think he'll definitely have a good season for him. Might take a little time to get him going and stuff because he has to learn a whole new offensive system, all that stuff. But I definitely think though he has the guys around him to make him a really good player down there. And like you said, he's been in the league for 3 years, still 25 years old, so still very young. It's not like it's not like you're getting a running back that's past 30 years of age. So he still have a lot of good things in him, I think. And personally, I think his best days are still well ahead of him. So I definitely think he's going to do a really good job if he can produce for Tampa Bay. But with Tom Brady, like you said, is he what he once was? No, he's not. And people kind of get on me for saying that, but it's true, he's not. And I'm not saying he's a bad player now. No, he's still a very good player, but I think he has to understand now where he has to put much more. It's not just going to go through him now all the way. He has to put matters into his teammates' hands, like we saw there with the Patriots the last couple of years, kind of letting the ball run, throwing those little short passes there, and just let matters stick into your own hands. Sure, he'll still throw the deep ball from time to time, and he'll still throw a lot of good passes. And personally, I think with him now being down in Tampa, he'll be throwing the ball. You could say possibly much more than he was there with the Patriots. His last couple of seasons, he has Mike Evans, like we mentioned. He has Chris Godwin, and now he has Rob Gronkowski, O.J. Howard. So you have a lot of good targets down there. Now, of course, with Leonard Fournette, LaShawn McCoy, really excited to see how he's going to do there with Tampa. So Tom Brady has a lot of good weapons down there with him, where I think he could throw the ball possibly a lot more, especially with the Tampa Bay offensive line. Still a little questionable, so we'll definitely see what he can do there. But like we talked about, though, last year with Tampa Bay, their defense was really good, but Jameis Winston throwing 30 interceptions, that's really not going to win you games. No, it's just. I think it was something I think somebody posted after he threw 30 interceptions when the season was over, he was Defensive Player of the Year. So that was pretty. I mean, that was pretty funny. You can't deny that. But I think with this Tampa Bay team now, getting Leonard Fournette, putting him into a system with much more experienced players, that's going to be a really good fit for him. He'll be able to kind of feed off on them and just, I think, develop himself into a really good player, and possibly, maybe because we kind of saw with the issues there with Jacksonville, just more of him kind of having the so-called attitude problems, all that stuff. Hopefully, this could be a really good stepping stone for him, not just as a player, but as a person there in life. So I'm really excited to see how he's going to do down there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, like I mentioned, just kind of a refreshing new spot to be in, new team, new coaches. Sometimes this is all a player needs, and obviously Jacksonville has been. Obviously, they had that one good year where they made it to the AFC Championship, but after that, really nothing was was the same. So, like I mentioned, good for him to get out of there. Definitely can see him being a really good asset for the Bucs. But yeah, only time will tell, and we'll have to just wait and see.
Yep, absolutely. So definitely excited to see how this is all going to play out. Now moving on to another running back. This is Alvin Kamara with the Saints. Past couple days, he was unexcused from practices. But now today, though, of course, he did make his return to practice. I know it's kind of been here. He is in the last year of his rookie contract, just making over $2 million this season. So I know from his side, from his point of view, he's had, since he came into the league, he's done a really good job there in the running and passing game. No doubt he is going to get paid. Question is, will the Saints pay him? And when you look at these guys, when they entered the last year of their contract, they want to get paid big money in case anything was to happen to him, whether it be some type of injury or they have to retire because of whatever medical problems they might come. It just depends what happens. So definitely I think for Kamara to come back to come back to practice, I think was a smart move for him. I know we talked about it here too. Will the Saints maybe try to pull off some type of trade there where no doubt that would be a big loss to them, but if you were to somehow trade him, you would get something good in return, I would think. But I think for Kamara, though, leaving the Saints would not be the best thing for him because personally, when you look at where this team is at right now, they're no doubt going to be contending for a Super Bowl championship if they can get back to that point. But who knows what's going to happen this year? If he was to hold out this entire season, he would be a restricted free agent where the Saints would still have to, where they could still bring him back if they choose. But if they did not want to bring him back, they could do that as well. So I think for Kamara to return to practice was a smart move by him. We know if he missed so many consecutive practices, that could lead up to so many fines. Last year we saw that with Antonio Brown with the Raiders. All that BS went down, and eventually he was completely let go. So I definitely think for Kamara to be back at practice is a smart thing for him. And who knows? Maybe at this point, it might be a little too late to work something out. But come next offseason, they may try to work out a contract where they can get him paid big money, I would assume.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see because obviously, the Saints definitely want to keep him. He's an excellent running back. Drew Brees loves to have him out there as well. Obviously, the Saints have a lot of offensive weapons, and he's one of them. So, I definitely would. It would be very surprising if the Saints traded him, this year. Obviously, the team that does trade for him would have to know that you would have to pay up because, he's ultimately, he wants the money, and you can't blame him. He's been very good with the Saints for the last few years in his rookie contract, and obviously he wants to make a good amount of money to provide for him and his family, and definitely can't take anything away from that. He definitely deserves it as well. So, but yeah, hopefully he comes back to training camp. Maybe they get a deal done before the season starts, kind of like with the whole Ezekiel Elliott situation a few years ago too. So maybe they can get something like that finished and finalized before then. But yeah, we'll just have to wait and see. But obviously the Saints don't want to let him go. But if they do, they're definitely have to, they definitely have to get a pretty good amount of picks and even maybe a player or two to make it even worth that.
Absolutely. I think definitely if you were to trade a guy like him, you definitely want something good in return for that trade, whether it be probably a couple of first-round draft picks or maybe a good player that's going to come in right away, help your team stay in contention there as well. So if the Saints are willing to actually pull off this trade, to make a possible trade for him, I mean, hey, that's up to the Saints, honestly. But definitely I think keeping him would be the smart move right now. But who knows what's going to happen? Is he going to go back to holding out, or will he just play out the season, see what's going to happen? What comes to my mind is now, obviously, this isn't a rookie, but Earl Thomas, back when he was with the Seahawks, we saw he was holding out in his last year of his contract there with Seattle. And I think in the third or fourth game of the season, he broke his leg and gave Pete Carroll a nice little finger gesture.
I remember that game.
Yeah, when he was on the cart going back to the locker room and ended up with a broken leg even. So that ended his season right there in a contract year. So you have to think, though, that, guys, hey, if Alvin Kamara was to come back this season or play this season, which I'm sure he will, of course, but he was to tear his ACL or have some type of season-ending injury, no doubt that his big payday that he was hoping to have could go down possibly. It just all depends what's going to happen. So I definitely think for Kamara, just have to wait and see what's going to happen. Just go out there and do the best job that you possibly can. And even with Earl Thomas, he still got paid good money by the Ravens, despite not being let go last week. Yeah. But I mean, it just shows you too that, hey, even if you do get hurt, you can still rack up a really good payday. I think teams understand that, hey, yes, he did get hurt last year, but look what he was doing before he got hurt.
Yeah.
The question is now, can he kind of keep that going? And I think personally for young players, they can do that. So we'll see what happens with that.
Yeah, obviously, we'll just have to wait and see. I definitely think he's deserving of the money. So like I mentioned, I hope the Saints can pay up before this season starts. I mean, like I mentioned, if the Saints are really risking, to let him go or to listen to offers from other teams, it better be worth it because he's a really good player. And obviously, if you let go of him for a Bill O'Brien trade, it might not be worth it at the end of the day. It's like DeAndre Hopkins, obviously. Yeah, we'll just have to wait and see. Like I mentioned, it's a kind of a waiting game. Obviously, it happens pretty much every year with a few different players that obviously believe that they're deserving of the money. So, and this is just another situation of that. So, hopefully, the Saints respect, his reasoning behind it. He's provided a lot for the team, and he just wants to be fairly compensated. And you can't hate that about it.
Not at all. I think players, people always say, "Oh, these guys get, they get paid too much money," and yeah, they get paid a lot of money, but think about though with that, about the risk that they're taking with this as well. I mean, hey, football we know is a very brutal game. You get injured and suffer not just an injury if it's going to affect you for a month to months to year, but it definitely could affect you for the rest of your life. And especially now with today, what we're seeing with players, now getting CTE. I know they're doing a much better job at that now today, but still. Just the risk though that you're taking, I think, is what players more look into. It's not that they're holding out because they don't want to play. No, it's just that they want to secure that good contract where that money is going to be guaranteed to them still. And I think that just comes more at more of a personal level than more at a playing level. So we'll see what happens with that. But before we close out our show tonight, I know, of course, with football season beginning here in just almost over a week, there's a few players I know we kind of want to talk about to look out for this season. One player specifically I'm looking out for this year is Kyler Murray. I think Kyler Murray, coming off a really good rookie season last year, 20 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, and now his offseason in Arizona, you can say that they've had a really phenomenal one, getting DeAndre Hopkins in that trade with Houston that sent David Johnson to there for Houston. A tough scene for them. They play next week against the Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs there on Thursday Night Football. But I think for Kyler Murray, though, I'm really excited to see how he's going to do here in year two. Same with Cliff Kingsbury, their head coach as well. I know when he was hired by Arizona, I was pretty critical of him, but I'll tell you what, last year they did a really good job. Yes, they still struggled at times, but you were able to see a really good improvement, improvements from them. So I'm really excited to see how that team is going to do. And I will say this, Carter, I know you're probably going to give me some crap for this, but I'm going to go with Mitch Trubisky. I know I know the jury's still out there for him. Last year, just a really tough year for him. Not much turnover-wise, just really inconsistent football playing from him. Yeah. So if Trubisky does get the start here in week one for Chicago, and if he can keep it up throughout the entire year, granted we even get through the entire season because of COVID, but I think for Trubisky, though, I'm definitely keeping my eye out for him just to see how he's going to do on a week-to-week basis. He has to just play consistent football, because if he's not playing consistent, Matt Nagy is going to throw him right on the bench. Nick Foles is going to step in there, and hopefully he does a good job as well. But I think, though, for Trubisky, he needs to just play consistent on a daily basis. So I'll definitely be keeping my eye out for him. But yeah, a lot of fun players to watch out for this year. Obviously, with Le'Veon Bell, a tough year for him last year with the Jets. His first year back after he held out the entire 2018 season. But definitely excited to see how he's going to do. Same with Sam Darnold as well. Darnold needs to have a much better third year. Last year, getting mono, being sick, and just not having to recover fully, still having to play when he came back from missing a few games. You could definitely see he was pretty fatigued at times still. Just wasn't the player that we were hoping to see from him. But definitely I'll be watching out for a lot of these younger players, seeing how that they're going to adapt as they keep on progressing here in the league.
Yeah, and a few of my players that I think are going to be, play better or have an outbreak season. I think Marquise Brown of the Ravens, he's going to be one of their best wide receivers by far. Obviously, just a rookie last year, had 7 touchdowns, about 550, receiving yards. So I definitely think he could double those numbers, if not triple those numbers this year. Obviously, Lamar Jackson was the MVP of the National Football League. So, having a good quarterback. Obviously, he's gained about 20 pounds of muscle or so. Yeah. So, obviously, he's bulking up, being a bigger target for him. Obviously, he was very quick last season with the Ravens. So, I definitely think he's going to be one of their top receivers, if not one of the top wide receivers in the league this season. Obviously, if they can finish, that is. And then another one that might be kind of shocking too is I also have Jimmy G also being having a way better season too. Obviously, made it to the Super Bowl and things, but obviously they had a really good running team, a lot of good running backs, I should say. Had a very elite defense as well. So I definitely think Jimmy G is going to take it to that next step. And obviously a lot of people were giving Jimmy G hate and stuff last year. And I thought he did, honestly, a pretty decent job for the most part. Here and there, obviously, it's just, you have to keep in mind that, that year before, he really didn't play at all, just because of the ACL injury.
Yeah,
so,
just 3 games.
Yeah, just 3 games. So, it takes time. And for him to bounce back like he did last season and then to go to a Super Bowl, I mean, that's really good to see. Obviously, as a Seahawks fan, it pains me to say this, but yeah, I definitely think the 49ers are definitely going to be a threat next season as well. And I definitely think Jimmy G is going to have a way better season as well next season, throwing the football and just being, that guy for the 49ers.
I think it's just more of like I think you can probably say the appreciation for these types of players. I mean, now Aaron Rodgers being older now today here, I'm excited to see how he's going to do this season. Obviously, I know there's been kind of a little drama going on between him and the Packers, supposedly, because this draft, they drafted Jordan Love, the quarterback out of Utah. And now you're thinking, is Aaron Rodgers going to be out of Green Bay within the next few years? So we'll see what happens with that. But I'm definitely going to be keeping my eye on him and seeing hopefully how he does. But I think for Jimmy Garoppolo, this last season, 27 touchdowns, 13 interceptions. So yeah, those you can say are definitely average numbers, but definitely for his first full-time starting season, because like we said in 2018, 3 games into the year, basically you can say 2.5 because he tore his ACL there in the 3rd game. So I definitely think for Jimmy Garoppolo, definitely he could be in for a much better season come this season. I'm really excited to see how he is going to do.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a lot of exciting players to watch out for next season, and he's just one of them. But yeah, definitely excited for next season and what the NFC West. Obviously, I'll be watching those teams very closely as a Seahawks fan, and obviously it's gonna be a lot of tough competition. Obviously, like you mentioned, Kyler Murray. I definitely think he's gonna have a better year as well, and I definitely think all those teams in that division are going to finish above 500 this season. I just think everybody in the NFC West is capable of pumping out a winning season, and all those guys are on each team are just very good, and just have to wait and see.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. But yeah, with football season just right around the corner, hopefully we get through this season and we can able to just have a good time, talk about it. But we'll wait and see what happens with that. Like I said, so many players to watch out for this year. I'm really excited to see how they are going to do. So we'll see what happens with that. Well, hey, it's been a good show. Glad we were able to come back here on this Wednesday. I know last night we had some internet problems, but glad we got those resolved. We'll be back here next Wednesday at 7 p.m. So definitely tune in for next week's shows. Definitely we'll preview the Chiefs and Texans game there as well. Definitely be a fun matchup right there. Yeah, for the Texans though. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for DeAndre Hopkins. I mean, that just sucks for him. Yeah. That just sucks for him. But
Deshaun Watson too.
Or Deshaun Watson, yeah. I mean, being traded away from a team that you were thinking that was going to be, that was going to be contending, and then you get shipped off to Arizona, and then now for Deshaun Watson, that just sucks for him too. So feel bad for those guys, but I mean, hey, for Hopkins, he's going to do a good, solid team, I think. So we'll see what happens with that. Anyway, like I said, next Wednesday we'll be back here. Until then, take care. Bear down.